Welcome to Municipal Focus. As you know, this is a program that we use to speak with folks. It doesn't necessarily have to be town related, it can be state or county related items and issues. Today, we are fortunate to be able to speak with the chairman of the Whitman Board of Selectmen, Dr. Carl Kowalski, who we have chatted with many times over the years. And we thought that it was time for us to get back together again. Carl, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
I mean, I know we're not sitting across from each other in the studio, which I know you would prefer and I would prefer, but at least we're able to have a little bit of a conversation and catch folks up on the day-to-day and what's going on with town government.
Okay. We'll do the best we can.
So I want to finally call this segment what we're going to do somewhat of a state of the town discussion as we are here at the beginning of 2022. Gives us an opportunity for not only a look back at the year that was or the past few months, but also maybe a gander ahead. If you can, give me your thoughts in retrospect of the year that was 2021.
Well, 2021 was kind of a productive year, despite the obvious interruptions caused by COVID. We finished a strategic plan during 2021. Its final form will be voted on next Tuesday on the 15th at our meeting. We've received the written draft from the person that put it together, and this was after a strategic planning day in which we had a number of participants in the town hall talking about our priorities and what we're hoping to do over the next 5 years. And we've been given copies of the final draft within the last couple of weeks, and if we have any suggestions for change, they'll be talked about on Tuesday, and then it will be official. It'll go up on the town website, and we have a plan that deals with priorities, challenges, opportunities, etc. So that was a big accomplishment. It's something that we should have done probably a long time ago. We finally got around to it, urged by affectionately named Citizen Kane, Sean Kane, who has been urging it for a long time. And finally, we got it done. And thanks to him for keeping our noses to the grindstone on it. So that was a big accomplishment in 2021. Our town meeting in 2021, our first town meeting was a success, I would say. The finance committee and the selectmen came with $10,000 of each other. That we only disagreed on one item out of the entire budget. It had to do with non-mandated busing. The finance committee wanted to cut it by about $10,000, and we wanted to have it remain the same. And at town meeting, the Board of Selectmen prevailed at town meeting, and it stayed the same. That may not be able to happen again, however, because as I understand it, the request from the schools for non-mandated busing is going to go up considerably for this year. So that's one of the things we'll need to be debating. I've always been a proponent of our town subsidizing non-mandated busing, which is busing of children who live outside certain mileage limits. It was years ago when I was on the school committee that it was actually a town sponsored thing where town meeting asked the schools if they could pay for it. And we did, and we've been doing it ever since. So I've been kind of stubborn about it. I may have to lose that stubbornness now if it becomes as expensive as it appears it's going to become. From what I understand, I hope this is correct, but from what I understand, right now, anyone who wants their child bused in Whitman can just sign up for it, and the child will get bused. It doesn't have anything to do with how many miles or half miles they live from the school, and that's different from what we used to do. So that's going to be a debate, and not one I'm really looking forward to, but that's going to be a change. But other than that, to get off, I was started off on a positive note. The last town meeting, we agreed. We in the finance committee agreed, except for that one item, which I think was pretty good. And hopefully we can continue that cooperation this year.
You started off by talking about the strategic plan and knowing that
Right.
there were many hurdles that had to be crossed in order at least to get it this close to the finish line. Um, how how do you feel about at least getting it to this point and at least having something in place that it'll help you kind of project the next 5 years per se?
Well, yeah, it's actually it's a document that will allow the town to know that we're actually thinking about planning for the future, and that we're trying to. We've always said as a board of selectmen that what we want to do. Our goals are simple. We want to maintain services because according to the survey that was taken a couple of years ago, a town survey, our citizens like the services. They like the way the streets are taken care of during the winter. They like the schools. They like the police. They like the fire. So they're happy with all of that. However, in order to sustain it, things have to happen, and we have to look like we're thinking about how to sustain it. And that's what the strategic plan does. And I'm really happy with that aspect of it.
Worth noting that just a couple of weeks ago, the town had a very special town meeting. I believe that met for a bit, but was not able to at least have a quorum to be able to have a discussion regarding the TBW building and doing something with that facility. And this is not the first time that this has been attempted, but it's one of many over the past several years. Your thoughts?
It's something that's really necessary. We have to tear down that DPW building and put one that is useful in its place. It's not a place where we want people that we value to work. The reason for the special town meeting in the wintertime was to give us kind of a head start. It was going to commit money to that project, which would make it difficult not to finish the project because we're eventually going to have to go out for to a lending place to finish it. However, we needed to have 150 people at the meeting, and we fell 20 something short, 23 people short, I think, which was unsatisfactory. We also had the other important item on that particular town meeting was to pay for a raise that was negotiated with our or a contract that was negotiated with our police, and what the effect of not having a quorum is that the police will have to wait until the spring to actually have their contract ratified. They get paid retroactively for their raise, but it's too bad that both of those things couldn't have happened. Now, we had a blizzard 2 days before the meeting. We talked whether or not we should postpone it, but it looked like streets were okay, everything was shoveled out, and we decided to go ahead with it. The other wrinkle was the mask requirement that was mandated in town hall at the time of the meeting. What would happen if someone came to the meeting and said, "I don't want to wear a mask"? There are people like that, and what we decided to do was to rope off a small section of the town hall auditorium to place those people because they have a right to vote. Only, if I remember correctly, only one person sat there for a little while, decided it was kind of a weird thing to be doing, and may have left. But I don't know what effect the blizzard or what effect the COVID crisis had on attendance at that meeting. Both of those may have had some effect. There may be an attempt coming down the road to seek a bylaw change for. In fact, I think I know of a citizen who has asked the bylaws committee to look at it, a bylaw change reducing the number from 150 to 100, so that we might not run into this situation again.
Interesting, to this pandemic something like we've never experienced. I mean, if you ask the folks who had to endure the Spanish flu 100 years ago, I'm sure they would have something to say. But what has it been like to govern during a pandemic?
Well, it's been difficult. We're lucky that we have a Department of Health and a health director that is on top of it. And the fire chief is on top of this. There's a team of people who work on it. What kind of prescriptions we should enact in order to keep people as safe as we can. One of the things, and the selectmen have had a number of discussions of it too at their meetings, and our goal is to make sure that we can maintain our what you'd call infrastructure, and that is we don't want people that work in the police department, fire department, DPW, town hall, library, council of aging to get sick, so that we can't perform those services. So we've been kind of some people might say strict. We've closed the town hall at different times. When it was open, we've said that people have to wear masks whether they're vaccinated or not. We've actually mandated that. It was kind of relaxed at that town meeting, but that was because of other concerns, because you can't take the right to vote away from somebody. I think we've handled it okay. We decided to purchase test kits and give them out for free to families. We've done that on a couple of occasions. And as a matter of fact, everyone that went to the town meeting as they were exiting received free kits. They were very difficult to get at one time. You couldn't go to Walgreens to get it. Now they're a little bit more available, and we've used whatever energy we have to protect people so that they'll know whether or not they are positive or not. The positivity rate, we get a report from the fire chief every week on how many cases we have in the town. He's keeping track of it, what the positivity rate is, and it's been alarmingly high for a long time. It's been high. It's been up in the 20s, which isn't good. It's coming down. It's coming down now. Although Plymouth County is a county that seems to have more of a Plymouth County and far out west in the Berkshires are places that have higher rates of COVID infection.
What has it been like to at least experience, the funding that we saw from the federal government, whether it was CARES Act funding, the ARPA money, which is still being figured out? Is it a blessing in disguise that at least the federal government stepped up, knowing that communities, that states and local towns and cities were going to need assistance to get through and manage during a pandemic?
Oh, definitely. It wasn't a blessing in disguise. It was a blessing to receive the extra help. The challenge is to be able to spend it on things that are appropriate. And there are a lot more things that are appropriate than one might think. I know it's helped the schools, for example, because the poor schools have been on remote learning for a long time, up until this year anyway, or for a lot of the pandemic. It's the pandemic probably hit education in schools harder than anything. It changed the way that we deliver the services, changed the way people accept the services, and it's been very tough on them, and the money has helped.
You've been a big champion of education on all different facets, whether it's K through 12 to even your work with local community with a local community college.
You mean Massasoit Community College, I think,
yeah,
right?
You can call it that too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. All right.
But I mean, do you think that we're gonna see a long-term effect with our children, with folks who are trying to receive an education for many years to come, that there's going to be that void because of trying to provide education, but not necessarily doing it in person?
Yeah, I know it's affected me personally. As you know, I've been retired. Well, you probably know I've been retired since 2009, and I teach some courses part time. I do it because I like teaching. I was an administrator almost my whole career, and those I'm a lot happier as a teacher than I was as an administrator. I liked my administrative job. Don't get me wrong. I liked being in charge of things. However, um, there's no downside to being in the classroom. There is kind of a downside to being a manager because what you're doing is you're going fine until things go wrong, and then you spend all your energy trying to figure out somebody else to blame for what went wrong. I mean, it's just sort of a cold satisfaction when your high is that things are going okay. But as a teacher, everything to me, everything is a high. That connection with the student and trying to share things that I've learned with them. Um, it's only fun for me when I'm doing it in person, though. And so I've told the people at Massasoit that I would like to keep teaching, but only if I can have a classroom that delivers in person teaching, and that just hasn't happened yet.
Getting back to talking financials and money, the governor just a couple of weeks ago releasing his budget, his final budget of his term of 4 years serving as governor. Any indication, any early discussions, whether it's amongst the Board of Selectmen, whether it's members of the Finance Committee, as to what the town will see for fiscal 23?
No, there hasn't been any discussion of the governor's budget yet. What we have done budget-wise so far, the season is just starting.
Yep.
Last week, our town administrator gave to us his proposed balanced budget for the next fiscal year at a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. And so what we have, it wasn't a discussion of the budget because we had just received it, right before the meeting, but it was a presentation of what he saw could be happening this year. And it's a hopeful budget. It's a balanced budget that should be able to take care of things. We'll be discussing it in detail over the next couple of months, as will the Finance Committee. And then we will have a meeting in early April with another joint meeting with the Finance Committee to see how close we are on our perceptions, our different perceptions of the budget. The schools hadn't, when we made the presentation last Tuesday, the schools hadn't made their presentation yet. They did the day afterwards. And that was an interesting meeting as well. The concern I have with what the schools have presented is that it appears to be using one-time only money to fund things that are going to last for more than a year. And it's difficult, therefore, to maintain sustainability if that's the case. Full K kindergarten, for example, is going to be paid for it looks like with one-time money. Full K kindergarten has been a strategic objective for the schools for a long time. This is as far as it's gotten to actually be in the budget. It's one of the town's strategic priorities too, is to help with that, and would love to do that. Whether or not, and we probably this year I'm hopeful that we can come up with a assessment contribution that will make this year a year that's fairly smooth, but next year it could be possible that we have a cliff that we have to worry about dropping off because of what happens after that.
And it seems to me as though maybe the one-time funding is just a way to prime the pump until maybe the two communities that are part of the district can figure out a funding source for it. Does that sound about right?
Well, that's about right, except the funding source that is talked about the most would obviously be an operational override. And we haven't had a lot of success with with those kinds of overrides. At least we've had close to success in Whitman and little success in Hanson. It's going to be up to the schools, I think, to try to put something like that together. And I know that there's sentiment in Whitman to look at that really seriously, and I hope it's maintained in our partner town too. the Whitman Hanson partnership has been a good one for years and years and years and years, and I'm hopeful that it's going to continue that way. I watched the school committee meeting. Totally impressed with the work that Mr. Stanhope has done as the finance person. I really liked the way the chairperson, Chris, ran the meeting. Looking for basically looking for to get together what might be opposing viewpoints. I think there could be real possibilities that our relationship with Hanson and with the school committee can be a positive one, at least this spring.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because we look back a year or two ago, and there were storm clouds that were gathering, where there was, they're talking about the funding source, how it funded, and what community was supposed to pay what amount. There was even discussion with the neighboring town about that. They were talking about, do we want to disband and do we want to break away from the regional agreement? And it seems as though a lot of that is dissipated and we're seeing the sun over the horizon. But for how long that will be, no one really knows. So I personally, not to editorialize this in any means, but we'll hope that things will keep working themselves out.
Well, that's our hope. That's our hope too, that things will keep working themselves out. I think there's a possible meeting set up with the Board of Selectmen in Hanson for some time in March, with the Board of Selectmen of Whitman, Board of Selectmen in Hanson, to see if we can come to some sort of mutual agreement on what we can afford to give the schools. The problem right now, the specific problem, is that the schools have asked for basically a 5% increase over last year's assessment. The town administrator in our balanced budget right now had a placeholder of about a 2.5% increase. So there's a distance there. We may be able to find a way to close some of that gap this year. I'm hopeful of that. Next year it's going to be even more difficult. The Madden report that people talk about, we established a committee. I think it was 2 years ago now, that looked at spending priorities for the town with respect to the schools, partly. That said that the town should try to give up to 5%, over the course of the next 5 years per year, up to 5%. It's going to be kind of difficult to do without an override, I would think.
Yeah, and knowing that the town doesn't have a robust method of generating revenue, it's somewhat limited. Right. Until that can be figured out, or at least some avenues can be kind of put into place, then it is what it is. So,
right.
Well,
right.
I would say, do you want to follow up on that before we move on?
Yeah, no. I think that the somewhere in between 2.5% and 5% is where we're going to be able to land, and hopefully the schools can adjust to that. But I don't want to predict anything, because I'm not sure how things are going to work out with the discussions.
Indeed. So as we're coming to the end of our conversation, anything that we haven't touched upon during our State of the Town or retrospect since the last time we chatted, you want to take a moment to kind of chat about?
Yeah, I'd like to throw out some thanks if I could. It's been a pleasure to work with this particular Board of Selectmen. It's a varied group, but it's been we have hard workers on this board, people who really care, and it's been my pleasure to be their chair for a long time. And this particular board is a good one to be on. It is. There are people that you can count on to actually do the work and do the studying and come in, despite differing political views, to come in and do the best that they can to support the town. I'd also like to throw out some throw out some kudos to our Department of Health and our health director and the fire chief and the police chief and the way that they've dealt with the Omicron crisis, the COVID crisis. They've been right on it. They've been supportive, and I think they've done as good a job as possible managing something that was totally out of our a disease that was totally out of our control for a long time. And I got to look back at the blizzard. We've always bragged about the way our DPW takes care of our streets. If you drive from Whitman to Brockton, you notice the difference. They did a terrific job this last weekend. They did a terrific job working out of a building that they shouldn't have been working in. And I have to give some kudos to the DPW for the way they managed themselves. It's just and the kind of service that they get out of their workers.
They definitely do a great job. Last question I would ask you, and is why do you enjoy serving as the chairman of the Board of Health? You seem to rise to the challenge, and it seems as though from time to time when I've watched the meetings that you're actually enjoying it. You like moving the conversations along or keeping a conversation going to make sure that everybody's having their fair say on a matter.
Well, thank you for saying that. It doesn't work out all that way all the time, but I enjoy leading a meeting. Something that I've done in my career. It's done my whole life, and it is fun for me to try to bring people together. When we were interviewing candidates for the assistant town administrator job, the finalists, I asked them to think about the difference between leadership and management. Is there are those two completely different skill sets, or can you ever find it in the same person? And for instance, and the example I used was I've known really good leaders who couldn't manage a 2-car funeral procession, and some excellent managers who couldn't lead a pack of hungry dogs to meet. I think when you're dealing with the Board of Selectmen, you're dealing with people that have varying degrees of both skill sets, and it's a pleasure to do that, to work with them.
We want to thank you very much for joining us for this conversation, and we'll look forward to checking in with you on a quarterly basis, if possible, just to see how things are going.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin.
He is Dr. Carl Kowalski. He has been our guest, chairman of the Whitman Board of Selectmen, and you have been watching Municipal Focus. We want to thank you very much for tuning in, and until our next conversation, have a good day.